Israeli naval forces have intercepted a Gaza-bound aid flotilla, sparking global attention and controversy. Were these ships carrying only humanitarian supplies, or was there more to this mission than meets the eye? Let's uncover the full story behind the latest maritime standoff. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a developing story that has once again placed the Gaza blockade under the global spotlight. Israeli naval forces reportedly intercepted a convoy of aid ships attempting to reach the Gaza Strip, a region already under immense humanitarian strain. The flotilla, organized by international activists, was said to be carrying food, medical aid, and other essential supplies. However, Israeli authorities claim the convoy attempted to breach a legally enforced maritime security zone. This latest interception raises difficult questions. Where does humanitarian aid end and political provocation begin? What are the motives of those involved? And how will this event affect an already fragile regional situation? In this video, we'll go through what exactly happened, who organized the flotilla, how Israel justified its actions, and what reactions have emerged globally. Stay tuned, because this incident is more than a simple naval interception. It's a story of politics, strategy, and the ongoing struggle over Gaza's future. The flotilla, according to organizers, was composed of several small vessels sailing from European ports. Their stated goal: to deliver humanitarian supplies to Gaza without going through Israeli inspection points. Activist groups from various countries, including Turkey, Ireland, and Norway, took part in the effort. They described the mission as a peaceful humanitarian gesture aimed at breaking the blockade. Israel, on the other hand, maintains that all goods entering Gaza must pass through approved crossings to prevent the smuggling of materials that could be used for military purposes. When the ships entered the restricted maritime zone off Gaza's coast, Israeli naval units reportedly issued repeated warnings to turn back. After being ignored, commandos intercepted the boats and redirected them to the Israeli port of Ashdod for inspection. Organizers have since claimed that the ships were seized and communication with the crew was lost. The event has immediately triggered diplomatic concern, with several nations demanding clarification. Was this a necessary enforcement of security policy or a heavy-handed move against humanitarian efforts? To understand this event, it's important to recall that Israel has maintained a naval blockade on Gaza since 2007. Following Hamas's takeover of the territory, the blockade aims to prevent the smuggling of weapons and military materials, but critics argue that it restricts basic supplies and violates international law. The United Nations and humanitarian organizations have often debated its legality and humanitarian impact. Over the years, several international flotillas have attempted to challenge the blockade with varying outcomes. Some were stopped peacefully, others ended in confrontation, most notably the 2010 Mavi Marmara incident, which resulted in casualties and international outrage. This latest interception is part of that continuing pattern, activists attempting to highlight Gaza's humanitarian crisis and Israel responding with strict enforcement measures. The Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, argue that allowing any unsupervised entry could set a dangerous precedent, potentially opening routes for arms smuggling. As always, truth lies between security concerns and humanitarian realities, making this issue deeply complex and emotionally charged. Reports indicate that the interception occurred in international waters near the boundary of the Gaza Maritime Zone. Eyewitness accounts suggest that Israeli naval ships surrounded the flotilla before elite commandos boarded the vessels. According to Israeli officials, no violence was used, and all crew members were detained safely before the ships were escorted to port. However, activist groups contest this narrative, claiming their communication lines were abruptly cut and that some participants were handled roughly. The Israeli Navy released footage showing what it described as a standard maritime security operation, while organizers released statements calling the action an unlawful seizure of humanitarian aid. The contrasting narratives have created confusion and debate. International media outlets are now piecing together the exact sequence of events, but both sides are sticking to their stories. For Israel, it was a lawful defense operation. For the flotilla, it was an act of suppression. This sharp divide is shaping the global response, now unfolding across diplomatic and media circles. Reactions to the interception have poured in from around the world. Some governments have called for a transparent investigation into the incident, while others have defended Israel's right to protect its borders. The European Union issued a cautious statement urging restraint and respect for international law, emphasizing the need for humanitarian access to Gaza. Meanwhile, human rights organizations criticized the operation, calling it an unnecessary escalation. In contrast, Israeli officials argue that the flotilla was more symbolic than practical, designed to create headlines rather than deliver significant aid. They highlight that Israel continues to facilitate thousands of tons of humanitarian goods through monitored border crossings every month. Yet, the imagery of armed naval forces surrounding unarmed ships has reignited emotional memories of past confrontations. As social media amplifies the voices of activists, governments, and journalists, the debate over who was right or wrong becomes not just political, but deeply personal for many observing around the world. Behind this high-seas drama lies a deeper political strategy. For activist coalitions, the goal isn't only to deliver aid, it's to challenge the legitimacy of Israel's blockade and attract international attention. By sailing directly toward Gaza, they force the issue into the global spotlight, knowing that any interception will make headlines. For Israel, the calculation is equally strategic. Allowing such missions unchecked could weaken its security stance and signal vulnerability. Therefore, Israel enforces the blockade consistently, regardless of the political cost. Analysts note that both sides are playing a long-term information game, one trying to expose humanitarian suffering, the other trying to maintain a narrative of self-defense. This tug of war plays out not just in the waters of the Mediterranean, but in international courts, press conferences, and digital platforms. The real battle, in many ways, is over perception: who controls the story of Gaza and who defines what security really means. At the heart of this issue is Gaza itself, a small, densely populated coastal strip home to over 2 million people. Decades of conflict, blockade, and political division have left its economy struggling and its infrastructure weakened. The humanitarian situation remains dire. With limited access to clean water, electricity, and medical supplies, Israel argues that Hamas diverts much of the imported material for military use, which is why restrictions are necessary. But critics, including aid organizations, say the blockade collectively punishes civilians. This flotilla, they argue, was an attempt to bypass bureaucratic barriers and deliver direct assistance. Whether that was realistic or symbolic, it speaks to the desperation many feel about Gaza's isolation. The interception, therefore, isn't just a maritime event. It's a reminder of the deep, ongoing crisis that defines daily life for millions of Palestinians. And each such incident reopens the question: how can security and humanity coexist in such a tightly controlled space? As diplomatic pressure builds, the United Nations and other regional bodies have called for calm. UN officials have requested full access to inspect the seized ships and verify their contents. To ensure transparency, Israel has indicated that once the cargo is cleared, legitimate humanitarian goods will be transferred to Gaza via authorized routes. However, activist groups insist that this misses the point. They wanted to prove that Gaza should have the right to receive aid directly without outside control. Meanwhile, protests have erupted in several cities worldwide, with demonstrators waving flags and holding banners demanding the end of the blockade. This public reaction adds another layer to the crisis. It's no longer just about ships and supplies, but about public sentiment and moral responsibility. As headlines spread, Israel faces renewed scrutiny, while activists gain visibility for their cause. Both sides, however, remain entrenched in their positions, leaving little room for immediate compromise. International analysts believe this event could influence future diplomatic engagements in the region. For Israel, the interception reinforces its stance of uncompromising security enforcement, a message intended for both allies and adversaries. For Western governments, it complicates relations, balancing support for Israel's defense rights with the growing global demand for humanitarian relief in Gaza. The incident also tests regional alliances as countries like Turkey, Qatar, and Egypt respond cautiously, each with its own political stake in the Gaza issue. On social media, opinions remain polarized, with some praising the flotilla's bravery and others defending Israel's vigilance. The result is a narrative battlefield where truth and interpretation are deeply intertwined. What remains clear is that this event will ripple beyond the Mediterranean, shaping not only humanitarian policies, but also the geopolitical dialogue surrounding Israel, Gaza, and the broader Middle East security landscape. This latest flotilla interception is a stark reminder of how complex and emotionally charged the Gaza situation remains. On one hand, Israel asserts its sovereign right to defend its borders and prevent arms smuggling. On the other, activists claim they're standing up for humanitarian principles and freedom of movement. Between these two realities lies a humanitarian tragedy that continues to unfold year after year. No matter where one stands, the fact remains, peace and security in this region can only be achieved through dialogue, trust, and transparency. The Mediterranean may be calm again for now, but the waves of this incident will continue to reach global shores. If you found this analysis informative, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss future updates on global defense, strategy, and geopolitical developments. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.